Cyclone Megan blows up over the Gulf of Carpentaria and named by the Bureau of Meteorology. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for March 16th. Around the world we have 18S, which is still a struggling depression, Megan, which is having a much better time of it in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and what's left of Filippo, now deep in the Indian Ocean, the southern part of it. We've now got 12 storms to this year's tally so far. With 76 days until Atlantic hurricane season, there are still no areas of interest, and long may it stay that way. A few little blow-ups of thunderstorms around the Gulf Coast states of the United States right now. Let's take a look at the Eastern Pacific. It's 59 days until hurricane season here, and it's even quieter actually. Very little going on at all there, with a few little bits of thunderstorms over the open ocean, but really very little to talk about at all. That's obviously also a good thing. In the Western Pacific, we've got no areas of interest at this point, and again it's deathly quiet, with just a few little thunderstorms over the Micronesian Islands and perhaps over Borneo. The North Indian Ocean also looking ever so quiet there as well, with hardly any cloud cover at all. Here's the activity then. Cyclone Megan is intensifying east of Groot Island in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and Tropical Depression 18 is still holding on and not moving very much at all. Also a 10% chance right on the very edge there near the international date line. We'll check the other side of that in a second. Ex-Cyclone Filippo is way down there, almost cut off the screen now, and that's a very weak remnant low. The pressure is up to around 10-13 millibars, very little left of that former cyclone. And the South Pacific, we're looking at that area there. It's over Fiji right now. This potential system that could develop over the next few days as it moves southeast of Fiji and towards Tonga and beyond. So let's take a look at Megan right now. Of course, we've got cyclone warnings from Mornington West to Numbulwar, Groot Island and Borroloola. It is 95 kilometers from Umbakumba, 137 from Alyangula, 177 from Vandalin Island, that's the largest one near Borroloola, 206 from Numbulwar and 259 from Borroloola. And it's currently with winds of around 65 miles per hour and a pressure of around 983 millibars right now, and is continuing to deepen. Looking at 18S, Tropical Depression, 369 kilometers from Barrow Island. It's moved slightly away from land since the last update, and looks like it will continue this very slow movement towards the west, and it's looking increasingly likely now that it will not have any land impacts, to be honest, although there could be some locally high rainfall amounts. 417 kilometers from Dampier, 431 from Karratha, 472 from Onslow and 507 from Exmouth. So let's take a look at the satellite imagery of these two systems predominantly. First of all, this is 18S. Looking at that convection that's blowing up, the center of this system is just on the southwesterly edge of that new blow up, and then you can see some old convection over to the left hand side as well. The system's really struggling with wind shear and with its circulation even as well, because it looks like it's getting a bit spoiled towards the west too, and it's getting increasingly difficult to actually ascertain a proper center. Nonetheless, it is still there right now, and it's still holding on, gradually moving slowly westwards, with that big bulk of convection that might help it along. Many computer models even still forecasting some strengthening on the way, but it's only barely reached tropical storm status, although it has done so on 2 occasions now. It did between the update that we last did on it and now. And this, of course, is Cyclone Megan, and that's looking much better. Really huge cloud tops, a massive dome of convection blowing up. and potentially a hidden eye underneath that starting to develop. That's speculation, but radar has one or two inklings of that as well. But looking at those cloud tops first and foremost, extremely high, and that is obviously going to be a harbinger of very large rainfall amounts over Groot Island and also other parts of the Northern Territory. And if that holds up until landfall, of course we could be looking at very high amounts of rainfall in excess of 500 millimeters and obviously strong winds. At the moment we're forecasting maybe around a 90 mile per hour landfall. That would be around 145 kilometers per hour sustained winds. The Bureau of Meteorology is forecasting a category 3 peak on the Australian scale. 90 miles per hour is a high in category 1 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Look at that convection though, and cloud tops almost to -100 degrees at times there. And there's the radar imagery really showing some decent signatures there of this potential eye. Of course, all systems look a bit like this on radar, but looking pretty decent around the edges of it too. And this is a wide shot of the whole Australian region where you can see both of those systems from a great distance, it has to be said. And this is the South Pacific actually that we're looking at. Look towards the left hand side and you'll see that disturbance blowing up. They're not blowing up that much, but still persisting around Fiji. That's the other one that we're watching. 10% on that. Sea surface temperatures are pretty decent across the eastern Pacific, but we're still drawing attention to that cool slot beneath all of that in the equatorial zone, possibly a sign of a La Nina coming. In the Atlantic, still holding on to warm waters in the Caribbean, a cool area towards the south of the region. And in the western Pacific, looking decent as well, up to around 28 degrees Celsius around Palau and Guam, and a little bit cooler than that towards the Philippines, and slowly increasing in the South China Sea. Warm waters continuing to extend up the coast of India, now along the coast of West Bengal, those 26 degrees Celsius isotherms. Off Myanmar, it's been a little bit slow there, but it is starting to catch up. Southwest Indian Ocean, very, very warm off the coast of Madagascar, especially northwest, over 30 degrees Celsius. Mauritius currently enjoying 28 degrees Celsius waters. Season certainly isn't over. In the Australian region, off Western Australia near 80 Mile Beach, very warm waters of over 30 degrees, and the Gulf of Carpentaria, where Megan is tracking right now, it's getting up to around 32 degrees Celsius on the final run up to landfall. South Pacific also looking very good. One spot close to 32 degrees there near Samoa, and around Fiji it's around 29 degrees Celsius. Compared to average, it looks like this. The orange zones are above average, the blue zones are below average. The Atlantic is very much above average in the main development region. Southwest Indian Ocean is above average in one or two important formation points. The Australian region is holding on around average actually, although the exception there is the Coral Sea, which is running a little bit high. Western Pacific fairly average there as well, if not just a tad bit above, and the Eastern Pacific is generally a hit and miss bag there as well, mixed bag. As of right now then, oceanic heat content is looking very good in the South Pacific. Obviously huge amounts of energy in those upper regions, and in the Northern Hemisphere, the North Pacific, the Western Pacific even, looking decent there along a line almost from stretching from Guam to the central Philippine Islands, and even higher amounts further south. GFS computer model tracks the progress of 18S. It briefly reaches storm status once, twice, and then that second time it finally catches on. 20th, 21st of March, starting to move away and strengthens, and the GFS is still hopeful that this system will become a Category 1 hurricane equivalent on the Saffir-Simpson scale, possibly Category 3 on the Australian scale as it moves away. Doesn't look likely that we'll see storm force winds for any great time along the coast. This is Megan peaking not too far from now, making landfall early hours of the 18th, that would be local time, so that would be early Monday morning for this potential landfall, and it will probably be at Category 3 status on the Australian scale, and like we said, maybe getting towards high-end Category 1 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, moving inland, rather broad as it does so as well, and continuing to push southwest, would lose its circulation quite quickly though. There's that system that we're tracking southeast of Fiji. It doesn't have that much of a chance. That's why we've only got a 10%. And there's actually another system that appears at the very end there towards day 4 and 5, an even smaller one near Fiji. We'll mark both of them now. Here's the first one that continues towards that direction. Off it goes. Only has a very small window of opportunity. And then that second one also with a small window, and it briefly moves towards the southeast, and they both fall apart very quickly. Let's check rainfall expectations then for these two systems over Australia, and of course it is mighty high for Megan right now, although the forecasts have been revised downwards just a tiny bit. So we're still expecting very high rainfall amounts. First of all though, in Western Australia, no more really than 2 inches in the Karratha area. That's around 50 millimeters, although out to sea where the storm is stalling it's over 500. Thankfully no land areas there. And of course where Megan is striking, we're getting close to 500 millimeters there for the landfall zone, and points north of there along the east coast of the Northern Territory. Further south towards the southeast, towards Carpentaria itself, up towards 11 inches there too, and on the tip of the Cape York Peninsula getting up to 12 inches plus from other tropical disturbances, and just possibly the outflow from Megan, that's over 300 millimeters. Longer range 18S finally gets itself going, and its sea legs moving off towards the west-southwest, and looks like it peaks as a high-end category 1 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Moves towards the southwest, then does a little bit of a, well, it stalls again actually, and weakens completely really, dying off to be honest there towards the end of that 10-day period, but it has a decent run according to that model run. However, having said that, it's been saying that for quite a while, and so far it's been a complete bust. In the South Pacific, obviously with Megan out of the frame, this is day 5 to 10 once again. There is a broad system that looks like it might try to get itself towards cyclone status along the east coast of the Cape York Peninsula down towards Cairns in the end, towards day 10. But in the meantime, it doesn't look like it's going to do very much, and I don't think that would warrant marking once it gets a little bit closer, unless things change, which of course they can. That's the serious stuff done. You can scan the barcode and take a look at the Force 13 merch store with all of our items, as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request at any time. And our Still Waiting for Hone t-shirts still very much available, and they are also waiting to see when Hone will form so we can get rid of them. In the Scilly range, the continuation of that system, and maybe a second one off the end of it there towards the right hand side. As a matter of fact, 2 systems coexisting there for a little bit. In the Coral Sea, that sea isn't big enough for both of them though, and one gets ejected back into Australia, and that other one eventually gets quite strong as it approaches New Caledonia, category 1 hurricane equivalent towards the end of that run. Of course that can happen at this time of year, but at this point it is nearly 16 days out, so I wouldn't put any faith on that just yet. And what a picture this was on this day, on March 16th, 1981, almost a mirror image. Cyclone Max, which was peaking as a 115 mile per hour category 3, and Typhoon Frida, which was peaking as a 115 mile per hour category 3, both on this day at pretty much exactly the same time, give or take a few hours. Frida really moving up towards the north there, recurving very quickly. Goes to show that even in March, the Western Pacific can fire. That was the first storm of that season, and Max was there as well, of course, moving out to sea. Well, in the Atlantic, the first name this season will be Alberto. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Aletta, and in the Central Pacific, it will be Hone, if we ever get it. 12 storms so far this year, and we are code yellow, high-end code yellow at that, in our operation status for Megan. In the West Pacific, the next name is Iwinya, and in the North Indian Ocean, it is Ramal. In the Australian region, the next name on the list now that we had Megan, is Neville. In the Southwest Indian Ocean, it is still Gamane, and in the South Pacific, it is Peter. That's all from today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll see you again tomorrow.